Hey folks, I just wanted to do a quick video responding to Craig Truglia from Orthodox Christian Theology on his post about the Western Rite, and I want to read it out and then just give my kind of initial feedback because a lot of people get all bent out of shape about this issue, and I think there is a really good middle ground between them all. So I'll go ahead and read this first. The Western Rite and the conversion on Anglican/Episcopalian parishes en masse is Orthodoxy's only realistic path to major inroads from minority to a dominant in the West in our lifetimes. And then he goes on to thread. 1. This doesn't make the Western Rite better or remove its problematic elements. It is simply numbers. With large rooted demographics indispensable to the local non immigrant population of the Western nations, such as Serbian and pagan elements, were baptized, so Anglican practices. So can Anglican practices. 2. Not everyone is going to be an e-convert, uproot everything, and join a different church. Whole communities with families going back generations in Anglicanism can convert if their traditions are treated with a sense of validation, taking in the meat and discarding the bones. The realistic path forward is continuing doing what we are doing, but not at the expense of completely upending their prayer life and liturgy. The set of conditions similar to those posed by Constantinople 1721 is solid precedent. Yeah, okay. 4. Non-negotiable would be accepting the first 7 ecumenical councils and the Confession of Dositheus. Added to this would be reconsecration of all clergy, replacement of all female clergy, and liturgics and prayers must be replaced with what Antioch and Roquefort have already approved. 5. The Anglican apologists sense this can work and believe this makes them particularly sensitive concerning the Orthodox. Anglicanism is obviously a sinking ship, but they are big. They are big. They are not going anywhere anytime soon. That being said, I think the dominant rite already in Orthodoxy is superior. Further, major success on this front would lead to such a disproportionate difference in rites that in the West that it will create a sort of chaos, but so did St. Constantine converting much of the Roman Empire. This would be one of those do it the right way, leave God the consequences. The reality is that Orthodoxy in our lifetimes, even with failure on this front, will become distinctly American due to demographics. 8. It should be acknowledged that the force Americans alienated by demographic change to opt into something that feels like in part opting out of what they already rooted in will hit a conversion ceiling. 9. Lastly, the preceding adds to the impetus to purge and, in my opinion, silence through synodal action the heterodox, strange, and ecumenist elements from Western Rite. These things make Western Rite weaker and in turn compromise serious Western Rite evangelism. So I want to first say that I think broadly speaking, I generally agree with his sentiment. My problem is there's many areas here where I actually disagree with his conclusions, and I think that there's areas in which there can be gaps bridged. First and foremost, there's an excellent article called "Is the Western Rite Right for Orthodoxy?" And it's from like the 90s, and it's fantastic. It's still up today. It's on one of the Orthodox parish websites. Fantastic article. Highly recommend people read that and the follow-up article that they had. I think it really explains the issues of Western Rite in a way that is helpful and consistent with my views for the most part. The second issue that this comes with is that his kind of claim that there is no way that we'll become the dominant um, in the West in our lifetimes without this, in my opinion, is just not true. And there's for 2 reasons. Because Anglicanism and Episcopalianism is collapsing in on itself. What major groups of Anglican and Episcopalian are we even interested in coming in mass into our church without having major purges of their clergy, their hierarchy, and everything else? The modern Anglican and Episcopalian church are so irreverent and so infused with LGBTQ social issues that what's going to be left of them besides maybe a few nice churches like the one pictured here? Those nice churches can easily be converted into an Orthodox church, and there's really no need for us to kind of mass adopt this sort of like view that they're the future of our church. I just don't see it. I think that it's not consistent with how we're going to be viewing the future of Orthodoxy in the West. And frankly, I don't think it's actually consistent with how we treat um, converging other regions. The Japanese Orthodox did not get their own liturgy, they didn't get their own aesthetic style. They had minor things that they've introduced over the last 100 years, but still on their core are fundamentally Slavic Byzantine Orthodox in origin. Why do I say Slavic Byzantine? Because the Russians have, over the course of 400 years, to be clear, this is a 400-year period, have made some changes in terms of style and aesthetics. But it's been a very slow process. The problem with the American ethos and the American mindset is that they constantly want to rush something that's probably going to take at least a century, maybe 2 centuries. Furthermore, if he admits that the Byzantine rite, or the normative rite of the church, the ordinary rite of the church, is superior, why are we recommending, spiritually and otherwise, for people to go to a liturgy that is not to the same standard of rigor, of spiritual development, and everything else? Why would we encourage that? Third, the growth of orthodoxy is seen in the Eastern Rite. The Western Rite has not seen significant growth per the claims that a lot of their supporters claimed would happen. They claimed Western Rite would dominate and there would be mass amounts of people converting into it. That just has not happened. And there's a couple reasons for that, but we'll get into that in a second. But ultimately, there's not much we're going to be able to do. If these Anglican apologists have not saw the theological rigor of orthodoxy already, if they haven't seen that it's already has all the answers that they need theologically and spiritually and otherwise, giving them the Western Rite is just allowing them to hold on to the baggage that they refuse to let go to convert in the first place. And that's a danger because we already have a problem in Western Rite where it's seen, whether this is true or not is irrelevant, it's seen as a safe haven for people like the Latinizers, for people that hold on to abhorrent and unorthodox views, people who mock uh, the idea of thromina, the people who mock the fact that this tradition was passed on to them from cradles. And it is through cradles that these things. Now, remember, the liturgy, the West, has been separated from the church for 1,000 years. That means 1,000 years of development in their liturgy and otherwise that needs to be purged. So my solution is very different, and I'll go into my solution in the last few minutes here. In a minute. I don't believe that most Americans, 90, and I would say upwards to 60 to 70% of Americans, have no meaningful connection to any of the mainline Protestant denominations or any of their mainline traditions, particularly amongst Gen Z and of millennials, who are the bulk of the people converting. These people growing up, we have no meaningful connection to the old Protestant ways of doing things. There's so few churches that are actually traditional in these churches that they're not going to have any familiarity even with a traditional Protestant service. They're going to be just as alienated from the traditional Protestant services or traditional Catholic services as they would from an Orthodox service, because where there's the West is so divorced from any sort of spiritual life, spiritual discernment, and everything else. They have female priests, they have LGBTQ priests, they have lesbian bishops, and their churches keep on disintegrating into smaller and smaller pieces. And even those ones that are so-called conservative are still, for the most part, have innovated greatly over time. Okay? So there's really no way that these people have any meaningful more connection there than they do anything else. This is why so many Americans don't have a problem just jumping into Orthodox Church. Like, yeah, I'm not familiar with this, but I didn't really attend church in the first place. I stopped attending when I was like 10. The last time I remember going to Anglican church was when I was a teenager. No one remembers any of this stuff. And and that is the biggest problem. This is the same with Lutheranism, this is the same with Presbyterianism, this is the same with all these churches. This is why the largest and fastest growing Protestant churches, even though is evangelicalism, which has really no tradition, of uh, meaningful tradition, and non-denominationalism. Those are the ones that have the most staying power, and even those are seeing weakening of their position over time, particularly in the West. It is only in Orthodoxy that we're seeing significant growth. There might be a few micro sects here or there that see a spike in growth after another collapse of another denomination, but it's only a certain amount of time before they collapse as well. It's inevitable. We see this time and time and time again. Now he adds, there needs to be a purge, and in my opinion, a silence through synodal action of heterodox, strange, and ecumenist elements from Western Rite. Yes, this is true. There are a lot of strange things in Western Rite, like Sacred Heart devotion. People claiming that their priest gave them permission to venerate Charlemagne, uh, the emperor of the Franks. Absolutely ridiculous. There's all sorts of abhorrent issues that these people have adopted, and it's because it's seen as a safe haven for these views. Um, my solution for Western Rite is this: Western Rite needs to be completely purged and completely ended. The Antioch, Rocor, and the other jurisdictions need to come together, and they need to kind of they don't need to necessarily have a council on it, but they need to kind of come to a basic framework and agreement that the core of the Western Rite is going to be the Divine Liturgy still, and then they will allow certain aesthetic prayers and fasts into the Divine Liturgy of St. John Chrysostom. So certain prayers and acathists and things like that might be replaced or added, etc., etc., and maybe a more using some experts in the field, using a more maybe Anglican style or Roman Catholic, Gregorian style chanting. Over time, this can develop more so like the Russian tradition has, but it takes time. The foundation stone still needs to be the liturgy that was preserved. The West did not preserve the truth, it was the East. And therefore, the liturgy is blessed in that way. And so we should use that blessing to purify and change that which is good in the West and turn it over into Orthodoxy. So that's the way I would handle it. Now I am not a bishop and I don't have any interest in being a bishop. So forgive me now if I'm overstepping my bounds with these kind of suggestions for towards our hierarchs. It is just merely my suggestion that it is just nearly my view that the only way forward is through unity. And when a Western Rite person moves to a new area and there's no Western Rite parishes around them, and they start attending a normal Orthodox service, a standard one, they're going to be completely lost. And furthermore, it encourages disunity amongst the church. This is the same issue that I see with the calendar issue. But you're now creating parallel things that have different feast days, different times of the year that they fast, different standards, different things they're praying. Well, now they're not doing processions with us because they have different aesthetic qualities. They don't have all of the gear and equipment, quote unquote, that we have. And so, how are they going to engage with other local parishes if they're completely divorced from the life of the church? That comes with major issues. Another thing they should do is they should just make it standard in a way that you can transition to this way that I'm suggesting, is merely say every Western Rite parish once a month must do a divine liturgy. Period. End of story. The clergy there must be trained in how to do a divine liturgy. They must know how to do it. And that is going to encourage a integration over time so that you're not just cutting these people off at the knees. So, with due respect to Craig, I don't see how this is possible. I don't see that these churches, the Anglican, the Episcopalian, all these different churches, they're dying on their feet. They're not going to be relevant in 10, 15 years, let alone 30, 40, 50 years in our lifetime. The future is orthodoxy. The future is more and more, smaller and smaller, niche conservative sects of Protestantism and to a degree Roman Catholicism. And those are not going to have the staying power or the institutional power that the Orthodoxy can have if we build this right. And frankly, I'm not that concerned with Western Rite ever being anything of significance in the West, anyways. And this is not because I desire it to die. It's just a reality that the growth we see is primarily in the standard divine liturgy that we see practiced all over the world. From Cambodia to Korea, from Japan to Russia, from Russia to France, from France to Africa, from Africa to the South America. This is what we see. Western Rite has not seen the growth that people said would happen. And therefore, rather than continue on a project that is not seeing the fruit that it should see at the pace that it's claimed to see, maybe it's time to reassess it, not completely destroy it, but reassess it and start making some alterations as needed. Those are my thoughts. If you're clergy, please let me know if I overstep my bounds, and I will definitely make a follow-up video and clarify if there's anything there. If you agree, thank you. Let me know as well. And please comment below what you think about this issue. If you are Western Rite, give your argument for it. Please defend it. I love my Western Rite brothers and sisters in the faith. I want to see it as good as it can be. And what do you think about my suggestions? Comment below, subscribe, like, and share this video, because I do think this is a conversation that is worth having. And oftentimes, polemically, it gets watered down on Twitter because people tend to be very polemical on this site. So, God bless. Have a wonderful day.